Alright, so there we go. We've got most of our shape roughed in. I'm still not great at doing this whole, shaping of the thing. That bevel jig is 100% necessary in my opinion. I have no idea how I would shape the bevels without that. I know you can use like files and all that stuff, but this just makes life so much more enjoyable. Just the grinder overall makes knife making so much more enjoyable than it seems like just doing it with files. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is not my design, nothing like that. I found a picture of this knife on the internet, copied it, and I'm just trying to learn as I go. So nicely enough, I was able to find a few knives that actually had the scales with them so that I knew what size they actually were, because that's the biggest thing when you're trying to learn something new is you don't quite know what size things are meant to be. So this is a really nice knife. I love the shape of the handle here. Once we have the scales on there, you'll actually be able to grip it because it shapes to your hand really nicely. So one of the things I did very differently compared to the first time is in the first one, I established kind of this transition right here with the chainsaw file, because that's what in the video that I was following in that one, and I think there is merit to that, and I probably will do that again in the future. But on this one, I just wanted to see what I could do without that, and it actually came out pretty good. We don't actually have all the lines left over from the other one like we did before, but the trick is that we don't actually go all the way back to past the point here like I probably should have. So I'm probably gonna have to fix that after the heat treat, grind that down either using the grinder or sanding it, or files. I don't quite know what I'm doing in that case. But either way, we'll figure out what to do then. But now we are moving on to the heat treating part. So I've got my little makeshift kiln set up here with my MAP gas torch. I'm gonna open the garage door, put my jar of oil outside, so that way if it flashes over, we're out in a nice safe environment where I can just kind of let it burn. And overall, I'm not as nervous this time as I was the first time. I'm still, I still kind of got the butterflies going, because anytime you're dealing with fire, there's risk of getting burned. The last time it wasn't a big deal, so I don't think this time it'll be that big of a deal either. So real quick before we get into the video here, I just want to let you guys know that I started a Patreon page recently, so if you'd like to show your support for the channel, there will be a link in the card above as well as the description down below. I've got 3 different tier levels, each with their own set of perks and that you can enjoy. If you join the top tier, you get to be a part of a monthly design session that happens on the first Saturday of each month, as well as free access to all of my digital plans and SketchUp files for all past and present projects. So if you guys are interested, I would really appreciate it if you're willing to go check that out. But anyway, let's get right back into the video. So knife number 2 is now completed, and it looks pretty good. It doesn't look great. Definitely there's some stuff that I was not able to get out. Definitely some stuff I need to work on on the next few that I do. But let's talk about what actually did work out pretty nicely here. So for the knife scales, I actually used a piece of really figured end grain. So I wasn't sure how it would work, and I'm not quite sure how long it's actually going to hold up and last. But it should be pretty stable compared to just using a normal piece of wood. The other thing that kind of worked out here really nicely is the size. Overall, I really like the size of this knife. I like how the handle is kind of shaped to your hand, so you can actually hold on to it pretty nicely. It's cool to have that kind of shaped grip in it. Another thing that actually worked out pretty good was the transition between the bevels of the blade and the rest of the knife handle here. So right in here, this area that on the first knife we established using a chainsaw file, on this one I just did it with the grinder only, and it actually came out a lot cleaner. I really like the way it looks, so overall, super happy that I did it that way. Now as for stuff that did not work well, there's a lot of it actually on this one. Before I did the heat treat when I was grinding in the bevel, I went far too thin, and so after the heat treat when I was trying to shape the bevel and clean it up again, I couldn't get out all of my scratch marks without absolutely destroying the edge. On the back side of the knife here, you can see how it kind of angles back like that. That happened because as I was trying to grind away, clean up all my scratch marks as best as I could, when I was using a 240 and a 400 grip belt on my sander, I just noticed that back corner just started disappearing. So I was starting to grind right through it. So I decided to just kind of cut my losses and deal with that little bit of a curved bit at the back there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It looks kind of cool to have that curve run over it and kind of back down. But yeah, definitely something that I have to work on in the future. The other thing that I kind of screwed up with on the grinding is I definitely did something weird to the tip. So we don't have a nice sharp point at the front here. We it kind of molds in weird. It's a bizarrely shaped tip, but it works out fine. Because I don't think I'll be using this knife for very much stabbing. But yeah, definitely there's not much of a tip there, and you can see how it's kind of squared off and not super good. My brass pins are also not placed really great. I just kind of eyeballed and guessed. The front one definitely should be farther back, and this one should probably be back, more in the thicker part of the handle area. So they're both just kind of in slightly more awkward positions. The final thing is the sanding and on the glue up kind of. So when I was using the epoxy to glue the scales to the handle, we got a lot of squeeze out right along the shoulder here, which on the first knife I made very sure to keep as much epoxy away from that area as I possibly could, so I wouldn't get that squeeze out, whereas on this one, I forgot to do that, and because we have this brass pin so close to that edge, I just thought I had to get epoxy around there anyway, so that was just a kind of a bad idea on my own part, and something that I now know that I need to avoid again in the future. Anyways guys, that's going to do it for this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pretty fun one to do. This knife is definitely going to be something a little bit special, a little bit different to add to my collection here, but as always guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.